I'm not going to take a long introductions. I'm going to make it very short because people are really keen to hear you talking, not me explaining why Zoom isn't working. So so we have a very exciting talk today by Simon. He's going to share some of his knowledge, 30 years in, how capitalism or Marxism makes a unique business model. He will draw on tons of his experience, and I speak on behalf of Brooks and the business school that we say thank you so much for your oil help and insight that you always provide, and I'm sure I will find your talk valuable. So without any further ado, over to you, Simon.
What I'll try and do is give you an outline of the last 30 years in about 30 minutes, which is an insight into a different business model to that most companies use, which is very much based on profit maximization, what have you. Obviously, profits are very good things. They allow people to have fun, to do things differently, and to have surpluses, and you can test things with and try things. So capitalism is a very good thing. But as long as it takes into account the externalities that aren't conventionally held in most organizations. So what I'm going to try and do is give you a bit of insight into the ethos behind it and the practicalities of running a business using capitalism and Marxism to create unique value to the people that work in it, with it, and to wider society. So this is, please, any questions that you've got at the end, if we've got time. If not, then feel free to get in touch with me and I'll try and answer them. WhatsApp's probably best because I can do a quick video then. So what I'll do is give you an inside track on a model that's proven to work over 3 decades. All I'd ask you to do is suspend your preconceived ideas of what a successful business is. It doesn't have to be the way that conventional business books and narrative in the media is. It can be slightly different from that, and you have got more freedom than you ever realize to make your organization the way that resonates with you as an entrepreneur or as a business leader. And it gives you a kind of opportunity to do things differently. Little kind of brief outline of what Webmart does. We're a marketing services agency. We started off as a print management business, but obviously over the period of time, life has moved on, as in this market, as in any market. So now it's very much more bespoke one-to-one communications. And so we have a kind of ethos that the brand is the most important thing. Obviously, ethical brands, it's all we trade with. And then we want to maximize the impact that they can have, because obviously if you get customers that are not doing good things, the last thing you want to do is make them as successful as you possibly can. Apologies for that. I've got my hay fever. Great. So Webmart does physical and digital marketing. The ethos behind the business was formed during the miners' strike. I'm here in Barnsley, in the centre of what was the South Yorkshire coalfields. There were 28 pits in Barnsley alone. And at the time of me leaving school and going to university, it was the miners' strike. For those of you too young to remember, it was a year-long strike where Margaret Thatcher, with a very strong political desire to crush the unions, basically sacrificed whole areas of the country, and made sure that the unions had very restrictive powers going forward. We were one of the kind of tangential issues with her desired outcome, and so our community was, not to put too fine a point on it, sacrificed to prove a point that she could break the unions. And as a consequence of that, there's a huge amount of deprivation, and still is in Barnsley 30 years on. But what it did to me was open my eyes to actually how power can be used. It can be used very positively, but also capitalism, which underpins all of the power, as we're seeing that in the modern political arena, is actually quite flawed in the way it does it. In that it doesn't take into account equality in any way, shape. There is no redistributive effect in capitalism. The winners win most, and everybody else has to fight for the scraps. It also tries to denude people of having a rich and fulfilling life by, going back to Adam Smith and the division of labor and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't actually facilitate people to have the skill set to have an enjoyable life unless it happens to align to making profit for the organization. Also, of course, environmentalism wasn't really anything to there's no feature within capitalism to take into account what's called externalities, things that are free, like pollution is, unless you get strong governments to enforce it. Pollution is effectively free, and so there's that huge gap which is leading to global warming, etc., etc., and also vested interest. The people, the establishment with a capital E, that sits behind the people who happen to get into power. It opened up my eyes to all of those elements which aren't necessarily put together in terms of the conventional capitalist thinking. So I went into it in a bit more detail, and we're always looking at GDP. The narrative in the political classes is higher GDP, better life. And yes, it is important to have economic growth, but the right type of economic growth. But there is no correlation between economic growth of GDP and happiness. And if you plot the two lines together, they do not correlate. Quite often, to get higher GDP, you can have things which are destructive to happiness. I mean, pollution is a good example. And there are many examples of things where to get economic growth, it leads to worse outcomes for wider society, etc. And when you plot the two together, there is a gap. So I looked into it a little bit further, and you look at what is classed as success in the current climate is these kind of people. The people that are egotists, the people that want to show on television that they're the big I ams and all this kind of stuff. And those of you who run businesses realize that doesn't work in any organization. People with egos won't work for the long term. And more importantly, it puts off people from trying to be entrepreneurship, because they think, well, if I've got to be an entrepreneur or to start my own business, I've got to act like that. The last thing I want to do is become one of those. So I think it's quite corrosive, and I think there needs to be a better narrative in terms of what a successful person in business looks like, what a successful business looks like. And what I've tried to do is create an alternative narrative. It's not got on the TV, but fundamentally it shows that there are many ways of doing it. I looked into the individual kind of life motion, going through life. What do you do with it? Why is there no correlation between GDP and happiness? And if you look at the life spend pattern that you have as a person in the developed world, certainly, then you have, you start off with very little spending because you've got very little money. You then, as you go and get on your career, you end up with more money, and you buy your own home, and then you have a family, and you get peak spending is around 48. And thereafter, you've kind of got everything that you need. You've got your family growing up and leaving home typically, or early 50s or whatever, and then you need less, and so you spend less as you go down in life. So that's the kind of curve of spending through your life. There is another curve which is slightly different. This is the self-reported feeling of happiness that you get, and reassuringly, this is not a slippery slope from young and you're ever so happy with life through to misery and death towards the end of your life. It is actually a U shape, which is very encouraging. That you start off quite happy, and then you get quite stressed with exams, and then you get into university or going into apprenticeships, and you end up with more responsibility, and then you have families typically, and you go down, and you become less happy over time. But then something miraculous happens in your mid-50s. What you tend to find is that people are more comfortable with themselves. They feel more in control. They've got more agency about their lives. They get a bit of time back to themselves. And who'd have believed it, all the way through towards the end of your life, you get happier. And that is fantastic news. In fact, you get happier than you were when you were young because you've got more assurance about yourself. You know yourself. You know what makes you happy. You know what doesn't. And you do more of the stuff that makes you happy and less of the stuff that doesn't, which it makes sense. And something I've tried to apply into the Webmart. But if you overlay those two things together, there is a bit of a dichotomy here. You've got consumer capitalism saying buy more, spend more stuff, and you'll make you happy. And yet, actually, at the peak time of you buying as much stuff as you can, you're the least happy you are. And as you start to spend less, you become more happy. And that's something that is quite profound. And I just thought, well, actually, there's a line in here that we need to get to. And that line is kind of enough. But what you tend to find is there's quite a lot of stress in the workplace. If you look at those stats, there's a lot of people think that their working world is a very poor place to live. And I just put the last quote on because I like it. We work at jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. And there is quite a lot of that in life. And don't forget, everything you buy, it comes with admin. It needs insuring, it needs doing, it needs maintaining, it needs, something to keep it operational, even if it's just storing it because you've got so much clutter. So there comes a time when I thought, well, what happens if I could, knowing this, could come up with a business that would allow people to have their best lives at work and out of work, not to go for this kind of materialistic dream of having, as much as possible, but having enough. And so what I did in 1996, I started up Webmart, which was a print management company, as I mentioned before. A rather youthful looking me. And I thought I'd give it a try. Well, what's happened since then? This is our balance sheet. It's gone up. We've never borrowed any money. One of the key things I decided, red line for Webmart, was never borrow money, because I'd always worked at heavily indebted companies and I'd seen what impact that does to management decisions. If you borrowed money off somebody, you have to live by their rules. Fact of life. If it's your own money, you can do whatever you want with it. So one of the key things was never do that. And we've had a strong growth. Our latest balance sheet was 8.7 million, and that gives us plenty of agency, opportunity, creativity, lateral thinking. We can test many things, and some of them work out, some of them don't, and that's why there's a slight dip in the line, because we've had to move into more digital things, and that takes a lot of investment and all that kind of stuff. But we can do it, and we're still very strong, which is great news, and that gives people a opportunity to stay with us for the long term. But they know we're going to be here. It also means that we are very tax efficient. Now, most companies look at tax efficiency as paying as little tax as possible. Webmart, we want to pay as much tax as we can. So all of the bonuses go through the payroll, which is at the highest marginal rate of tax, because paying tax is what gives society its richness. Things that capitalism doesn't do particularly well, or the private sector of capitalism doesn't do particularly well, things like this, we need to all pay our taxes. And so for me, it's important that we become a very proactive part of supporting the government, whatever flavour it is, to deliver the kind of things that really do materially make society better. Yes, I'd like them to spend it more appropriately, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, we want to pay as much tax as we can, because that allows us to do all of the kind of nice things that we want in society. And we're allowed to pay people more because we are successful. It allows us to pay 69% over the average medium income in the UK. And at the same time, and I'll explain how, it's allowed us to donate nearly £1 million to charity. We have, because we've got that money in the bank, it earns interest. We've got spare office space that we rent out. Because we haven't had to do anything for that, there's no active work going into it, we donate that to charity. And that allows us not only to give money, which is very good and it helps a lot, but also give time. Everybody's given an element of time to spend with their charity and to choose the charity of their choice. And that makes you appreciate, I'll go into it a little bit later, it makes you appreciate what you've got and also how lucky we all are. That it's easy to take things for granted. So to me, I want to make business as simple as possible so everybody in the business is on the same page, everybody understands it, everybody can buy into it and understands where we're going from. We don't want multi-page strategy documents and blah, 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 blah. We want to make it as simple as possible. And this is what I've found works for everybody throughout the world. And that is snakes and ladders, really easy. If you say to people clearly what 100 is, and you're starting at 1 in a year or in a 3-year kind of program, we want to get to 100 as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And that means that we can either do the boring, laborious one all the way through, or we can try and find ladders to get there faster. And ladders usually come from not only people in the business, but a wider network of people trying to help you. They will help you find shortcuts. If you can share with them what the strategy is and why you're doing it and how it benefits everybody, then you tend to find people help find ladders. But also, they also keep you away from snakes, because we all know in the world of work there are people who are not necessarily as benign as you would like to think. But if you've got a good wide network, these people give you the opportunity to not find where the snakes are. By taking you back, you can actually get out of it. So that is the fundamental, how you get there faster, how you get there very efficiently. You work on an analogy of snakes and ladders. So how have we gone about achieving things like that over that time period without borrowing money and in a marketplace that has evolved beyond all recognition from 1996, when we were a print management company and print was the main form of marketing, through to now where we're an omni-channel sustainable marketing agency delivering everything to customers, but we've remained profitable every year. Well, as we all know, the first principle of business is if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So most businesses look at things in a single focal point: profit, financial. That's the most important thing. Everything revolves around the financial. Every outcome comes around it. As the old adage goes, to the man with the hammer, the whole world is a nail. And if you look at everything in a financial monodimensional way, you lose quite a lot of what is important for people in there. We, however, look at things in a different way. We look at it in 3 different facets. Firstly, and most importantly, we look at the intellectual value we can deliver to people, because if you give people the opportunity to play to their strengths, whatever that is, and you obviously need to have trust to tease out of them their strengths and also be honest about the weaknesses, then if you make them do more of the stuff that they're good at, who'd have believed it, they enjoy it more. And that's where they maximize the emotional return. So firstly, intellectual, secondly, emotional. And if you've got people doing what they're very good at and they're enjoying it, people work with you and people want to work with you increasingly. And that's where you get, as an outcome of those 2 things, a good financial return, not finances being number 1. And at an individual level, that means we have to find out what they're good at, as I mentioned, and also what they love doing and what they don't like doing. On both of those things are equally important. You want more of the good and less of what isn't enjoyable for them. Obviously, it has to align to the organization's strategy, because without that, you can't make profit, and profit is the lifeblood of any business in the long term. And as the outcome of that is we can pay them well, because if they're creating unique value for the business, we will pay them appropriately. We'll mark to market and we'll incentivize and align through the sexy scheme, which I'll come on to later, to give long-term value. As a overall approach, we don't just look at Webmart as the company, we also share and are very open with both suppliers and clients. To me, suppliers are quite often overlooked by companies as a source of competitive advantage. But if you've got a really good trusting relationship with your suppliers, the vast majority of the value add of your end product will be bought in one way or another, unless you're a solicitors or something like that. Generally, the better you work with your suppliers, the better the value proposition is to your customer. You can deliver a better product or a better service if you're working well with suppliers. So that's a huge amount of intellect we put into and sharing with them. And at the end of the day, if you do that with your suppliers, you will always serve your customers better. Everybody has to win out of this. And one of the things, like in COVID, most people were drawing back on paying because we were cash strong. We said to all our suppliers, instead of paying on the normal terms, we'll pay you in 7 days. And in the first lockdown, within 7 days, we paid everybody of all of the money that outstanding, because that was really important to them. And I knew whatever happened, nobody knew what was actually going to happen in COVID at that time, but this was before furlough and all this kind of stuff. I knew that Webmart would be able to pay for everybody for at least 2 years without getting another order. So that gives you that resilience as a business, but it also, as a leader, it allows you to walk the talk in terms of why money is important, why not borrowing money was important to me, because it gives you that freedom to do it. But also, as you can imagine, our suppliers have never forgotten that moment when they were in them, not knowing where they were going to get money to pay salaries and staff. We did counterintuitively. We paid as fast as we possibly could because it was really important to them. And that kind of feeds into leadership values. These are my view of what will give you good long-term buy-in by staff, by suppliers, by customers. Transparency is one version of the truth. Makes it really, really simple. If you are transparent and you tell the truth to people, they trust you, and trust is the most efficient way of working. So it's really simple. It may takes a lot out of your head if you're not having to juggle multiple versions of the truth. It allows you to be authentic, and it allows you to actually crack on. You don't have to think, oh God, what have I said to that person, or and all this kind of stuff. It makes life a lot easier. And I genuinely believe these days you can't outcompete in the long term, because there's a win-lose in there. The truth is that you need to out-collaborate people, and by sharing insight, by sharing opportunities, by sharing, it's a more efficient way of doing it because you're working with people rather than against them. But secondly, it's a lot more fun. And let's be honest, who doesn't need more fun in running a business? So we work very closely of how to work better with suppliers and customers and each other. And one of the key things is by sharing strategy, sharing objectives, sharing what success looks like for us with our suppliers and our customers. And then you've got a virtuous cycle of feedback from both, and people can send me if they want any help. I've always said to people outside the organization as well as inside it, please just get in touch, give me a WhatsApp, and I'll help in any way I can, because I've got a wide network of people in all sorts of different areas that can help, and that runs through the business. So how do we maximize the intellectual return? Firstly, we ask people. We have ways of identifying the competitive advantage of people. We make sure that they do more of what they're good at and less of what they're bad at on an ongoing basis, because that evolves over time. And we wrap the job role around the individual rather than trying to shoehorn somebody into a job description that they wanted. And that allows you to make the most of everybody on an ongoing basis. And this is young Booner, who started with us as a trainee IT apprentice and became CEO, and has recently set up his own marketing business in video, which is going really well, which I'm delighted about. But that's the kind of journey, and that was 18 years from him borrowing his father's suit by the looks of it to come for his first interview, all the way through to him looking equally annoyingly youthful at in his mid-30s to set up on his own. But then you've got a lifetime of friendship. You've got a lifetime of opportunity to work together, and you're playing to the strengths of the people within Webmart. And we, before even people join, we do a psychometric test. There's different color tests and enneagrams and all this kind of stuff. But psychometric test is very useful. This one's mine, and we share it with the team. What are the internal drivers that make people tick? So you try and get on the inside of the person before they even join you, so you understand how to work with them, the kind of thing. And that, as you can see, for me, the economic element is pretty low. Never been a driver of mine, but I am interested. I am curious about many different things in life, and that's the theoretical. I enjoy thinking laterally and creatively about many different things, and that's a good reflection of it. And then we ask everybody to do a video of them before they join. So this is just a snapshot of videos. I don't think we've got time to do the one I was going to share with you because we're running a bit late, but it's a very good one. So if you do want to do it, I'll happily share a link to this Prezi and have a look at young Charlie Barrett doing that. That's the beginning bit of it. And then after the start, every 6 months, everybody is anonymously assessed by each other about their about the team, about their approach to life and what have you. And before they get a full-term contract after probation, they have to go through two, one at 3 months, one at 6 months, and then every 6 months thereafter, where people can anonymously tell people about the good things about them, which shows appreciation, and also the ways that they need to improve, or there's a possibility of improvement, and they run through that with their line manager. And that whole business approach is really important because everybody feels empowered by that, and also knows that everybody is going to be ranking them on a regular basis. And that's the every 6 months we do a review of things, all the way through to how well people take a joke, which is kind of important in a business. And then the most influential people, which are the people with the highest individual rankings times the most people have said they're great, go on the screen. So we show appreciation every 6 months. We have rolling metrics in each of the offices, which shows every time orders get booked in, every time money comes in the bank, but also these are the most influential people in Webmart, voted for by each other, which is just a nice thing to do. And what we've found out is that everybody can be a leader in the business. In different areas, you can't always be, organizationally a leader in terms of hierarchy because it's quite a flat organization, but you can in terms of experience, in terms of sector, in terms of different ways that people look up to you as a leadership role. But what we found is that what would be classically classed as female traits, which are the ones that are on the right, are very, very important. And the ones on the left, which you see in the mainstream media and, dare I say, God help us, in politics, which are the more perceived as masculine kind of traits, are very much don't work in this world. So understanding, active listening, being kind is a really key thing. Because not always, it's not all kind of easy times, but even if there are tough times, you can be kind in the way that you approach a tough issue, rather than be, banging desks and all this kind of stuff. The truth of the matter is, of course, for most people in the world, particularly young people, people want to grow with your organization. If you let them, and if you give them the opportunity to, they will want to stay. Nobody really likes moving unless they're not intellectually, emotionally, or financially rewarded appropriately. If you cover those three things off and give them an opportunity to be the best that they can be, why would they want to go anywhere else? And we have very high staff retention. I think our scores are plus 92% on engagement, whereas if you look at the typical score in an organisation, it's way lower, around 30%. So by acting this way, you tend to find people feel empowered. They feel like they've got control of their own um, their own self. They're in the right place for their richness of their experience in work, and also balance for outside of work. And people will stay there for a long term. And obviously, people staying there for the long time, constantly updating their skill set to offer the new products and services that customers need, is exactly how you build a successful business going forward. And in particular, now with the world of AI here, it's not even coming here, it's here, right now. Anything that doesn't need creative thought or empathy on a human level will be automated. It's as sure as eggs are eggs. Maybe not yet, but and obviously there are certain roles like hairdressing and stuff like that that when it's a physical job that you can't automate through AI. But on service sector, if you don't need a human interaction that is empathetic, and if you don't need creativity, which computers don't do very well at all, then an awful lot of it will be automated going forward. And that's why it's really important to develop the skills of your team in those spheres, to understand the people and how you work with people, to active listening, body language, being proactive and creative, and all that kind of stuff. Developing that side of the world, because an awful lot of their day-to-day mundane tasks or procedural tasks will be automated in the very near future. So it's a responsibility of us as leadership team to create the opportunity and the honesty with the team. So this is the way the world's going, and we want to give you the skill set to thrive in the long term. And so we give people plenty of opportunities to develop going forward. But it is a seismic change that we are going through at every organisation. We already use it in coding, in creative, in business process management, etc., in Webmart. And we will continue to do that. And obviously, the aim is to grow the business in turnover and success, but with the same amount of people. Repurposing the time that people have into that creative and empathetic, which is a richer experience than pushing buttons and doing stuff that computers can do. But it is really important. So for us, making sure people have the best opportunity to learn as much as they possibly can through life is really important. Even if they didn't in the earlier stage of their career get a degree, we will sponsor them through these kind of things. There's lots of free training and paid for training that we do with the team to make them the best that they can be. And that is a very sensible investment of our time, and having the cash to do it and having the profitability to do it allows us to enrich people's lives that way as well. Just mindful of the time. I don't so much do it now, but one of the things people used to say to me when I was, on point with everything, is, how do you get so much time to read stuff and to understand about all of this kind of stuff? Well, I said, it's dead easy. My diary is absolutely rammed, with the exception of Tuesday mornings. And on Tuesday mornings to a whole day, I go out on my DIY MBA. And what's that? It's my research time. I put lots of stuff I want to read in there, and I used to head off in a van and up to the top of the hill, listening to hard house trance music, which is my music of choice for when I'm thinking, and drinking cups of tea, looking at beautiful scenery and reading stuff about many different areas, not just my work related stuff or personal development, but also different sectors and what have you. So create a bit of space in your diary, block it out so you do have that time. It's a choice that you've got, that you can block out development time for yourself as a leader or an entrepreneur, because you need to. As you develop your skill set and you have more people in your organization to be able to do the day-to-day stuff with account management and what have you, when you're talking to other leaders, they want to find out something interesting. And if you've not got anything interesting, they think, it's point of spending time with that person. And it doesn't have to be about what you do. Quite often, it's just about other aspects of it, and you've got to invest in your own time. And that doesn't necessarily mean spending, lots of money on courses and what have you, although I'm sure lots of books can offer you appropriate way of spending money on lots of exec management courses. But you can just spend a bit of time yourself to do it. But you have to have the discipline of block booking that out in your diary and not letting anything get into the way of it. So that allowed me to get to give what I called commercial tithe. I think 10% of my time I gave away to people, anybody either mentoring or doing speeches for a range of different organizations. And that's how it created a space for me to help as many people as I can in the wider area rather than just the commercial side of things. Because it's really important to, invert the management structure. I'm at the bottom of this. The people on the coalface, the people dealing with your customers and your suppliers on a day-to-day basis, usually have the insight to innovate because they're dealing with everyday things rather than, not from on top coming down and telling everybody, Moses like what's the next stage forward. Actually, innovation comes from people who deal with things every day, and we do harvest that every day to improve and make fast iterative cycles. The other way of looking at it is that making sure that people have the opportunity to mentor each other, because mentoring is very much a two-way street. It's not you telling or listening or whatever. It's a two-way street. So everybody has the opportunity to mentor each other, and that allows generally people to be much happier because they're empowered, which is a lot of in a lot of organizations they find that very difficult to do, and people find the micromanager or what have you. And helping people to have time to mentor each other is really good. And then we measure how happy the organization is. The easiest way of doing that we found is by just giving people a chance to press a button and say, how happy are you? And it's anonymous. And we've published that on the website as well, so you can see how happy Webmart is at any time of day or night. The other thing that we've done, and part of it was from an environmental point of view, a rewilding project that we've got in Scotland, and the part of it was to facilitate people having a wonderful holiday for free if they work at Webmart with their family. And it's got an award-winning eco lodge on it. It's 164 to 6 acres, depending on who's counting it, of rewilding, which we've done. We've created 27 ponds on it, and we have a 200-year vision for recreating a Caledonian woodland, an ancient Caledonian woodland up there. And all the planting's done, 14,000 trees. And this site, everybody gets for free a week, a year, if you're a Webmartier. And it's got everything you could possibly want, except two things: a television and internet. So you can spend the time, you can do everything you want to do. It's got campfires and all that kind of stuff and what have you, but you can't be online. And what we've tended to find is that people go back and back and back because it's a wonderful place to go. And at the same time, it allows Webmart to be carbon positive to the tune of 1,226 people, because we've got that land which is creating huge amounts of oxygen through the rewilding project that we've done. But even then, some people, all of us at some stage or other, do have challenges. And if it's not ourselves, it could be somebody in our family or a friend who's going through something. So Webmart gives, and has done since 2003, everybody £500 a year to help with mental support that they need, or one of their family friends needs, or whatever. We don't ever ask what it's about. All they have to do is put the receipt in, and we'll pay it through the expenses. And it really has helped an awful lot of people. People will talk to you confidentially about it, but we are very open about mental health, and we have a well-being committee which is really good and proactive about helping awareness, but also individual instances of need. So that's a really important part of Webmart. Always has been and always will be, because everybody needs a hand sometimes, and that's part of our charitable approach, but also our, if you like, good well-being for everybody in Webmart. And it's relatively inexpensive compared with not doing that, and people going off with major issues, or heaven forbid, having an even harder time. So people go into an office and spend a lot of time there. We want to make the office as interesting as possible. This is the Yellow Shed of Wonderment down in Bicester. Some of the rooms that we do, just mindful of time, I'm going to rattle through them. There's the aircraft room, and it actually shows the clouds moving by as you sit there, which is slightly perturbing for the first time. We've obviously got a gym down there. We've got our Elizabethan war room, which we have strategy days in, which bear in mind, this is an industrial estate in Bicester. It's amazing what you can do for a very modest amount of money. And we have weekly updates with people. Just everybody can share with them what's happening this week, etc. And you get lots of different styles of people doing that as well. And again, it's a low cost way of good communication. By being honest and open and having one version of the truth, it's much more efficient. You never get paid for bureaucracy, so try and make it as bureaucracy light as you possibly can. So we have 3 rules in Webmart. First, never assume. Honestly, the root cause of all cups is somebody's assumed somewhere. If you go use the 5 whys to get to the root cause of it, it's or somebody assumed. Secondly, do anything that you want as long as your mum will be proud of you. And there is an asterisk at the bottom, just in case your mum's a psychopath. Please do it that you'd be proud of yourself if it was in the public domain. And thirdly, as long as it passes those 2, crack on with it. Never defer, because if you leave it for whatever, nothing happens in the meantime. You just don't try. You don't know what the outcome is. Go for it straight as soon as you possibly can to try it and test it, because most of the things won't work out as you expect. So the sooner you try it, the sooner you'll learn, and you either iterate or discard it based on that experience. Really simple. One of the screens that we have is showing people when money comes in the bank. It gives a ka-ching, and ABBA's money, money, money comes through, because most companies don't have any idea of how much money's coming in. You never see it, you never feel it. So we want to try and give them that feeling. We're still going very strongly, and that gives people an opportunity to feel kind of well-being really about it. And if we look at Maslowian hierarchy of needs, my responsibility is to do all the bottom bit, all the kind of stuff to build a system of appreciation and an opportunity to be the best that they can be. Everyone else's is the self-actualization. Make sure that you do the best job that you can, knowing yourself, and make the role and the creativity that you do within that role as good as you can, because I've given you the kind of building blocks, the solid foundation to be able to do that. And we'll just quickly move on to the last thing, the maximising financial return. So we've done the intellectual and the emotional. Financially, how does it work? Well, as we've alluded to before, making too much money doesn't make you happy. You can the clue to it is the fact that when you're spending maximum, you're actually not very happy. There is no correlation between the two, but equally, not having enough money isn't happy as well. So there's this magic world that's a word called enough that is really important. And as a leader, we shouldn't be looking at making everything for ourselves. And that's one of the tragedies that people think. Success equals how many noughts you've got in a bank balance, and actually it doesn't. It quite often, if you're doing it to the detriment of other people, it destroys the culture of your business in the long term. And if you look at the kind of people on the top and you look at the people on the bottom, I know which kind of person I would want to work for, which kind of meaningful organisation I'd want to be part of, rather than the people that look after the number one. It really doesn't make you very happy. and people, irrespective of what you think, aren't impressed by you making a lot of money for yourself. It's about what you do for everyone else that actually matters. So here we've worked out in Webmart what is enough, and enough for Webmart was 400,000 of post-tax profits, which is why we got the strong balance sheet. We're buying in lots of stuff. We need to have good financial um, figures to be able to get good credit lines, to be able to buy really effectively, and therefore offer that value proposition to customers, which is why we've got that balance sheet, as mentioned earlier. And then we want to share out the rest. And this is the sexy scheme, which is the Senior Executive Incentive Scheme. And everybody who's in Webmart for 2 years is on that scheme. And you can see the distribution is really simple. 400,000 is the red block, and that's retained in the business. Between 400,000 and £1 million, half goes to the team, half goes to me. And that is shared out based on the base salary of everybody in the scheme. There's a lump of money divided by the base salary of people who've been there 2 years, and that gives a percentage, and everybody gets the same percentage. Obviously, that is different amounts of money based on the seniority and the responsibility that you take, and that's a incentive for people to constantly strive to do better and to develop their skill sets, because we mark to the marketplace, and as people create more value for Webmart, they're paid more, and this gives a multiplier effect for that. Above £1 million, 100% of it goes to the team. So there's this super sexy scheme where everything that we make above £1 million goes to the team, and that really has a big impact on the percentage. So we strive, but it's for their own well-being. So we use capitalism to create the profit because it's a fantastic way of delivering it, and we use Marxist principles to redistribute that profit amongst the people that have created the value in the first place, which kind of makes sense. So I've just kind of overview rather rapidly as I could, given you a choice of how you want to run your business. You don't have to do it in a conventional way. You can do it different to the way that the media establishment, business books, professional advisors tell you. They have a certain kind of approach. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually create something that is aligned to your ethics and be successful. It doesn't have to be conventional to be successful. You know, we've got 30 years of experience to say actually doing something kind of unconventionally can actually work. Because don't forget, it wasn't that long ago that the heretics, the people who are seen as troublemakers and what have you, were locked up or were pilloried. But now, of course, we look back and they were the forerunners of a much more enlightened age. And I think Webmart and Marxist capitalism can be a way of looking at the older form of capitalism and evolving it into a more enlightened version of capitalism, because business should and can be good for society. It can be good for the people who are working there. They can have a more enjoyable experience and more successful life as a consequence of working in a business like this. And we can make it more sustainable for everybody who's on this planet. And we've used some of the cash out of that balance sheet and bought that land effectively for free, because you're just turning cash into an asset on a balance sheet. And now we've got a wonderful place which delivers value to everybody and to wider society. So, in conclusion, welcome to Marxist capitalism. It allows you to use a business to create good for everybody. And if you want to, you've got a choice now to change the approach that you may have taken in the past, to think and act differently in the future. So, in the nicest possible way, on your marks, get set, go. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. I mean, it's quite inspiring, and yeah, I mean, probably I will see you at Brooks at some point, and I have a lot of questions for you, which I'm not going to take the floor on this. So I'm just debating what to do. Are you okay to answer two quick questions?
I can
And we
answer two
were,
quick questions and then I have to head off.
yeah, yes, please. So I will pick the first two questions that we have. Again, lots of compliments about very inspiring, very a great business idea. Would you say your unique selling point from a client perspective is your ethos or product?
I think it's you can't disinter one from the other. I mean, I've got a Tesla and I love my Tesla. I love it to pieces, but I've also got a sticker on the back of it which says this Tesla does not endorse Musk because if you the truth of the matter is the product is fantastic and it when I bought it many years ago it was a great car. Now it's a tarnished brand. And I think if you've got to look at the not just what you do, but how you do it is a key part of the value proposition that you know without going through marketing. Um, and I think actually the people are buying the product from us. It may be a marketing campaign, it may be a physical product, it may be whatever it is of our products, but also the approach, the way that we do it, the way that we work with them to co-create that campaign to maximize its effectiveness, to co-create the product, to reduce the carbon footprint of it and make it more efficient and effective as a marketing channel is a key part of it. And I think going back to my DIY MBA, when I talk to business leaders, I'm rarely talking about what Webmart do for them. I'm talking about the kind of ethos and also just listening to them about their challenges and perhaps coming up with other people I can signpost them to or other approaches that they can do. So it's much more of a collaborative kind of discussion that I have with people these days than it used to be, you know, selling a product or service. So I don't think you can remove one from the other. I think there are, you know, competitive advantages about doing things differently. It isn't necessarily the least cost way of doing it, but what we're trying to do with combining sustainability, ethos, and return on investment, that what we tend to find is that actually they work very, very well together. Whereas usually you think, well, you know, if it's going to be sustainable, it's going to be more expensive and stuff like that. But by combining those things, that the ethos of the business, along with our environmentalism, along with the excellence in the way that we do it, those are the kind of tripartite pillars that people work with. So a mixture of the two. But you've going back to what I was saying about suppliers, by working not just client side like that, but with suppliers like that as well, is massively important. And most people don't think of, you know, you think of CRMs like customer relationship management, but there is supplier relationship management, which is equally as important that you need to put effort into and use in the same way because these people are, you know, both of them are vital to your organization success as well as, of course, like what you do internally.
Thank you, Simon. I'm just looking at the time, and I know you have such a busy day. Uh, Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you for bearing with us with the technical difficulties. Please do connect with Simon. We're hoping we can invite Simon again and have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you again, Simon, and
My
thank you,
pleasure.
everybody on the call. Take care.
See ya.